Hello, how are you all today? I'm doing fantastic. My name is Suzanne Bryan, and I'm live streaming today from the coast in California. This is the Central Coast. I got to come over here for the weekend, yay! And have a relaxing time and knit, of course, and work on my unfinished projects and future upcoming projects. So let's see who's on here already. So let's see. Ophelia, hello, and Susan Powell. Susan Powell wants to know if I'm at the seaside directly west of Bakersfield. I think it's a little bit northwest. I'm north of Morro Bay, between Morro Bay and Cambria. And if I look out the windows here, I can see Morro Rock, which is a destination for some people. It's a volcano cone. You know, I'm having a problem with the light going off and on in here. I'm going to turn some overhead lights on. I'll be right back. Let's see if that helps a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so it's very bright out the windows, and we do have I have the shades pulled down because otherwise it's just the reflection off the ocean's very bright here. It's the middle of the day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon here, which is very, very sunny. And the weather usually in this area of the Central Coast is overcast, cloudy, foggy. There are some beautiful sunny days, but the majority of the days have some fog that comes in from the ocean. Today is not one of those foggy days. It is brilliantly sunny outside. It's about 70 degrees, absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so just north of Morro Bay. Hello, Judy, how are you? And Carol, Adriana, Deborah, Miriam, Lisa, Anne Tremulias, and Anne has been doing so fantastic on translating the subtitles of my videos into French. Yay, she does several a week. It is amazing. Eric Joseph, good from Brazil. Hello, how are you? Susan McBride from Scottsdale. Sue M. Breaking for record lows this week. Oh my goodness, minus 30 degrees. Lisa. Let's see, Rona, Sylvia, Nancy Creedmoor. Hi, Nancy, how are you? Sue, Renee, hello, Renee. Kelly, Amy, Elaine, Lisa, Francoise, and Francoise is the one who's doing the translating of the written materials for my knit-alongs into French. And I just sent her the knit-along lesson 3 for the Starry Starry Night socks. So she'll get back with me tomorrow, and then I'll be sending lesson 3 out on Tuesday morning, maybe Monday night before I go to bed. Jane Hart, hello. Celia. Okay. Let me show you my sock. I finished one, yay! And I posted it on Ravelry and I said, can you find my mistake? There is a big mistake. It's on both sides. See how the side pattern goes like boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes. I'm going to make the other sock match it. I think it looks fine. Nobody noticed it. It's a pretty big mistake, but I think it looks good. And I started my second sock in reverse colorways. So this one, on this one, the green was the main color. On this one, the yellow is the main color. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what is the difference between the main color and contrasting color versus dominant color and non-dominant color. That's two different things. And I think it confuses a lot of people. And I talk a lot about this in lesson 3 of the knit along as well. So in the pattern for the materials, it says main color and so much yardage, and then contrast color. So when you're looking at a pattern, not specifically the Starry Starry Night pattern, but any pattern that has more than one color, it'll give you the main color and then the contrasting colors, right? So the main color is usually the color that provides the background fabric. So in this sock, the green provides the background and the yellow provides the design, right? So the green would be called the main color and the contrasting color would be called the yellow. And sometimes you have more than one contrasting color. It might be other than stranded knitting. It could be any kind of design that uses color work. The main color is usually one that provides the majority of the background fabric. And then the yellow would be the contrasting color. So when I flip my socks and I do this one the other way, I'm making the yellow the main color and the green the contrasting color. Now that has nothing to do with which color is dominant. That just means which fabric is the majority of the fabric in versus the additional fabrics that provide the color work. Then there's the case of the dominant color. So I do want my little yellow to be my dominant color, but you could choose the background to be your dominant color. It's personal preference. So in this instance, though, I chose the light color to be my dominant color, so I held it to the left of the non-dominant color, which in this case is the green. This sock, I'm doing the opposite. I'm holding the green to the left of the yellow. So that is dominant versus non-dominant. And it has nothing to do with the main color versus the contrasting colors, two completely different things. Then another thing is that, I always say that, hold the dominant color to the left and never change, because you'll get that crazy lines in your knitting where the dominant color changes, the color to the left changes. But when you're doing corrugated ribbing, most people find it easier to do the purl stitches with the yarn that's being held to the left. And maybe the purl stitches are the non-dominant color. For example, actually, in this, it turns out that my purl stitches are my dominant color, but it might be that your purl stitches are the non-dominant color, but it's just easier to purl with the yarn that's held to the left. It's less troublesome. If you are a continental knitter, you have no problem purling. If you're holding one yarn in each hand and you're doing continental with the left hand and English with the right hand, then if you hold your purling yarn in the continental hand, it's much easier to move the yarn back and forth to do the purls. Okay, so that's all about that. I love these socks. I'm having fun. Oh, hi, Scott. There you are. Let's see who else is here. Judy says, looks like relaxing at the coast agrees with me. It does. I need to do this more often. I'm going to have to put it into my schedule. Okay. So let's see who else is on here. Jane, Francine Frechet, bonjour from Quebec, Canada. Pat Gordon, E.T. Guerrero, Connie, Sandra, Margit. Hello, Margit. Lourdes, David Rickles. Oh, that must be David Rickles. I have a friend named Jackie. She must be using her husband's account. I bet that's Jackie. Okay, Lucy, Bonnie, Tanya, Signa, Emily, S. Kate. Okay, let's see if there's any questions on here. Remember, when you're going to ask me a question, put question at the beginning of your statement in all caps. It makes it easier for me to find it. Well, Lorraine says, when I pointed out the mistake, she says the mistake will be inside your shoe. No one will know. Thank you. Okay. Amanda. I got too relaxed when I knitted the diamonds. That's exactly right. I was like headed to the toe. I was on the end run and I was going for it, and I just knit those 2 diamonds. Okay. Diana says, question, where is the mistake you mentioned in your first sock? Oh, let me show it again. Here's the foot, and see this side panel. This side panel goes boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, boxes, diamond, diamond, boxes, diamond. It's my signature. These haven't been blocked yet either. I just finished them yesterday, so they look pretty good. They'll look even better when they're blocked. Kathy, hello, Kathy. Yes, she says mistakes are simply unplanned design elements. That's exactly right. It makes it mine. Nobody else is going to have one like it. S.K. Hoyt says, can you show the two ribbings together to show the difference in color dominance? Yes. It's quite striking. Not the color dominance. I think mostly it's striking because there's yellow at the top border and the bottom border here, and over it's green. But here, the yellow are the knits, the greens are the purls. Here, the green are the knits and the yellow are the purls. And here I held the green to my left, here I held the yellow to my left, okay? Okay, Diana says, Kathy, I agree, I make lots of design features. Yes, and Kathy says, me too. Demetria, hello, Demetria. I'll write it in my book. Yes, I need to write that down in my book, don't I? Okay. Hi, Tracy from Illinois. Marit, greetings from Norway. Hello. Kathleen Morris. Hello, Kathleen. She's from my hometown of Bakersfield. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about this week is I'm going to show this one again. Somebody asked on Ravelry about the size of my wrist, and I measured my wrist. I think it's 6 inches. So I have skinny wrists. This is 72 stitches. Let me put it on my other wrist where my watch is not. Okay, this is 72 stitches. Now, and this is going to be a fingerless mitt. Okay, it's not going to be a sock because it's too skinny to go around my legs, my ankle, and get over my heel. This is 72 stitches. Fits my wrist pretty well, but you really don't want to make your mitt based upon your wrist measurement. You want to make your mitt based upon the measurement around this part of your hand, and then you can do a 10% subtraction just like you do for the ease of standard socks. Now, these are not, the socks we're doing are not standard, so we didn't have any negative ease, right? But you want this to be able to fit over this, let me pull my thumb out, this part of your hand here. That's the area that it should be fitting. Okay? So, Francois says, question, for the ITAG sweater cardigan, if we alternate skeins because of hand-dyed yarn, must we alternate skeins also in the brioche ribbing and in the button bands? I don't in the ribbing or the button bands because they're a defined area. And because there's a change between the fabric texture between the body and the ribbing, that's a good time to use an odd skein if you have one, and even for the button bands too. The button band shawl collar is big enough, it might use more than one skein, and if that's the case, you do need to blend them. It depends on the weight of the yarn that you're using. I think in, because I did mine in 2-color brioche, I can't tell you, I did not use even a quarter, I maybe used a quarter of a skein of fingering weight yarn. I think there's a dog loose in here, crawling around on the floor, distracting me. Okay. Betty Wright, I don't know why, but I feel like the Starry Starry Night socks would be worn in a Tolkien world. Yeah, I think so too. They kind of like, I don't know, they're special. Jennifer Whish, question, are all of the knit along videos shown on YouTube? If not, where are they on Ravelry? Have bought and I'm knitting the Starry Starry Night socks. So I do have video lists, playlists on Ravelry, and one of them says Starry Starry Night socks. So all of the videos that are involved in that sock are in that playlist, along with all the live streams that have question and answers that are related to that playlist. And then all of my playlists are still available. I mean, my live streams are available on YouTube after they're over. They're still there, and you can still read all the questions, and you can hear my answers in the live stream. So they're there for perpetuity. They're not going to go away. And in the knit along, of the Starry Starry Night socks, I have a QR code and a live link that go to the playlist that has all of the collection of the videos with the sock. So all you have to do is go to that playlist. You don't have to search anywhere, and you can just either use the QR code or the live link and go directly to it. Okay? Okay. Nature Craft said, do you also crochet? I do. I'm actually a very good crocheter, but my preferred craft is knitting. Okay, so I was going to show you another book that has stranded knitting patterns in it. And it's an unusual book. This book, this is the title, and it's just for mittens. The whole book is mittens. But there's lots and lots of stranded patterns in here for the mittens, and you could use them for anything. Oh, Nature Craft says, I'm also bi-stitchual. Yes, I'm bi-stitchual. And so in here, you open it up. I wish I had the better lighting, but you can open to any page, and there'll be a mitt. Here's the knitted mitt, a picture of it, a life-size picture, and this is it charted. And that's not a very good pattern to show, but there are just tons and tons and tons of stitch patterns in here. And I like to use this as inspirations for choosing. There's just bunches and bunches. There's hundreds. And some of these you've probably seen in other works. And you can combine these. And what the reason I'm showing this is you can use any of these for Starry Starry Night socks. You could plug any of these. Isn't that pretty? Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? That'd be gorgeous on a Starry Starry Night sock. And also, you could use any of these for inspiration for working on your yoke sweater that's coming up the knit along in case you want to do stranded knitting in the yoke. This is just another resource. Now, this book is not in English, but you do not need to speak, the charts are universal. All you have to do is look at the charts. You don't need to read it. The book is Latviesa It's really kind of a cool book. Okay, and then last time I showed you this book, but I'm going to show it again. This is kind of like my go-to book for stranded knitting charts. This is by Alice Starmore, Charts for Color Knitting. And I'm actually looking at a couple in here that I am thinking about. I'm thinking about using this one right here. I kind of like these swirls. And I'm thinking about using it with part of this. So I counted, this has an 18 stitch pattern repeat. This has a 24 stitch pattern repeat. So I'm swatching that. I'm working on a swatch over here with possible yarns for my sweater. The main color is going to be yellow. And if I choose this, and it's kind of, and the contrasting color would be this blue. So I started the swirly design, and I'm using a size 4 needle, US 4, and this is fingering weight yarn. So I'm using fingering weight yarn on this sock. It's the same size yarn as this, that I'm using a 2.5 millimeter or 1.5 needle for this sock. You can see there's a huge difference in the size of the stitches. This is a US 4, this is a US 1.5. But for socks, you want a more durable fabric, right? You want to be able to walk on these and for them to not wear out the first time you wear them. Whereas for a pullover sweater, you can have a much more flexible and open knitting, but it still looks fine. The stitches are not too big. They'll be just fine. So there's a huge difference from stockinette stitch fabric that you might want for a garment, not really an undergarment, but I wouldn't wear this as I'm knitting this to wear indoors in Bakersfield in the wintertime, and I think I'll be able to do that. So let's see if I have any more questions over here. Okay. Did you get the name of the book? Did everybody get that? Okay. Frida, question. You have mentioned you watch your knitting. Do you listen to something while you knit? I have not participated in your knit-alongs yet, but I'm following your videos. Well, you know, I'm really hard of hearing. So sometimes I listen to music. I do not watch TV. I'm not a TV person. My parents, when I was raised, we never watched television. We played games and cards, and I read a lot of books, and we listened to music. So I never ever got in that habit of having TV as part of my life, and I still don't do that. So it's not like I miss it because I never developed the thing to do it anyway. I watch it once in a while. Like I really like to watch the Westminster Dog Show. So my husband, he watches TV all the time, but I don't sit in the room where he's watching TV. I sit in another room that's quiet, and I work on my knitting and maybe listen to music. I like the peace and quiet. Some people like to have a lot of noise around them, but I'm not one of those people. I like silence. But because I'm hard of hearing, I can't really hear much anyway. So even if I have something on, I'm sitting in a room of silence. So I just like to watch my knitting. It's like daydreaming. I just zone out. Okay, Marty Huang, question, Starry Night sock. Whoops, it jumped up. It'll come back down. Okay. I have significant larger circumferences around the leg compared to normal legs. How can you find right amount of stitches so it fits to the pattern? Thank you. In the knit along, if you have the pattern, the pattern is $6.50 on Ravelry. The knit along part of it is free. In lesson 1, we learned about, was it lesson 1 or lesson 2? Lesson 1 and lesson 2, you learn about swatching. I think lesson 2 is swatching. I show you how to make a swatch and how to determine, to try it on, see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, how to determine how much you need to change it to make it fit. In this particular design, not because of the stranded part, but because of the lines, to get all these lines to work out, you have to add or subtract stitches in a multiple of 8. So if the current size does not fit you, the first thing you can try is continuing your swatch and going up 1 needle size. And then if it works out, that's great. But I wouldn't go up 2 needle sizes because then you end up starting to get fabric like this that is too big. And when you walk on this, it'll wear out really quickly. So if going up 1 needle size does not help you, then what you need to do is add stitches, and you have to add in multiples of 8. And what you would do is you would add 2 stitches right here before these stripes, 2 stitches right here. Now in this particular sock, I don't seem to have my Starry Starry Night socks up here. Here's a picture though. In this particular sock, the Starry Starry Night sock, you would just add 2 stitches on either side of the lines on both sides, and you would just expand the stars out. And there is a special chart that is in this pattern. It's called the wide leg chart. And you can actually use that for drawing on there to figure out how many stitches do you want to add and how wide do you want your chart to be. And I tell all about that in there. Okay, so you can try doing that. I have one friend, Jackie, who actually, she went up a needle size and it was still a little bit too small. Not a lot too small. It was a little bit tight around her leg. So what we decided to do was to go back down to the add 8 stitches, but go down a needle size so that she's kind of in between going up a needle size plus adding stitches. And so instead, she's not getting the effect of a full 8 stitches being increased. She's getting more like 4 stitches because she doesn't need a whole 8. But in this particular pattern, if you want to maintain this design, the lines are really a big part of the design. If you want to maintain the lines, you have to add stitches in multiples of 8 or subtract stitches in multiples of 8. Okay? And that's how you find the right amount of stitches. Lorraine says she likes the swirls. I like them too, and I can just imagine them going around my sweater like this. I'm looking forward to that. Okay. Diana Danko says she's not bi-stitchual, she's multi-craftual. Yeah. I used to be, but I narrowed it down. Okay, Kimmy Knott, question. How do I plug a pattern on a sock or sweater? Could you do a video about that, please? I could. Let me add that to my book, my video list. Here's my book. Remember, I have my book. I love my book. Okay, my video list. So I'm going to add the topic of how to substitute. You want to know how to substitute a pattern? Is that what you want to know? How to substituting a stitch pattern. Now, when we do the yoke sweater, which is coming up soon, I'm going to be talking a lot about that. A big part of the yoke sweater is how to plug in whatever stitch pattern you want around the yoke. So you're going to be able to plug in stranded knitting, cables, lace, mosaic knitting, just textured knitting. I'm going to teach you how to plug that in and make it fit, because what you're doing, you're not just plugging it in, you have to start with something narrow. They're like pie-shaped pieces. You have to plug in these pie-shaped pieces to fit in a yoke. And that's what I'm going to be teaching you how to do. And I think that you'll get a lot out of that. You can use it in a lot of instances. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. Oh, there's an English book version of that book now. It's called Mittens of Latvia. There you go. You can get it in English. I probably got mine before the English one came out, but really you just need the charts. Okay, which yarn did you use in the socks? I used the yarn from the Twisted Skein. There's a link on my pattern page for getting the kits for it, but you can use any fingering weight yarn that you want. In fact, if you go to and look at the pattern page on Ravelry, there's links to everyone's projects, and you can see what all yarns that they're using. There's been a lot of different yarns used. Okay, let's see. Nature Craft says, in the 80s, when I was a kid, me and my mom had no TV for about a year. I read a lot of books and played outside. Exactly. Oh, I love to stream a fireplace on my TV. Yeah, I would do that. I don't even have a TV in my living room at home. Okay, so let's go down here and see if there's any more questions. Pat has a question. I kept yarn in front to purl instead of moving from back to front for corrugated ribbing. The purl stitches show through just like you said. Will it affect the stretch or the design? Let me read it again. I kept yarn in front to purl instead of moving back to front, from back to front for corrugated ribbing. The purl stitches show through just like you said. Will it affect the stretch design? I don't know. Try stretching it and see how it looks. I don't know. And I have some questions from the folks on Ravelry I'll be going over too in just a few minutes. There's one similar to that from the Ravelry questions. This is Scott. Question, ITAG. Is the ITAG written tutorial complete now? I want to take a clean copy to the business center and have it spiral bound. Thanks. It's complete minus the zipper and hood instructions. If you're not planning on doing a zipper and hood, it's complete. But I'm almost done with the zipper and hood. I'm hoping to have it finished tomorrow. And then Francoise will translate that. And then the ITAG will be complete. Okay? So it's real soon. I want to get it off my plate. I'm done. Okay. Let's see. Question, if you're doing a pattern with 3 or more colors, is that still stranded knitting? Yes, you can strand with any number of colors. Now, when you talk about Fair Isle knitting, which is a subset of stranded knitting, one of the rules that makes something Fair Isle is you never work with more than 2 colors per row. But like in boho stickning, you often work with 3 colors per round or row, and there you can work with any number. There's no rule on that. That's a great question. Okay. Amorous Joseph says, I'm designing mittens. Any advice for adding colors? Just play with it. You know, you'll know when you have your colors right. And you can even work colors in stranded knitting in the intarsia method. You can just add little blips, or you can go back later on and duplicate stitch in some accent colors if you'd like to. That looks just fine. You can't even tell that it's been done. Okay, Valerie. She liked the idea of the swirls and the Greek key pattern together too. Yes, I like that. Okay, Susan Powell. Can't get this. I got my pet peeve right now is the steepness in the angle of the decrease with my very fine needles. Okay, that's it. Let me see. This is Nancy Reese. Question. When working the gussets, your directions say to stop after round 30. Is that 30 rounds of the gussets? Yes. Because then you're going to go, there's special directions for round 31 and 32. If you look at that chart for the gussets for round 31 and 32, let me get my Starry Starry Night socks pattern out here. Here's the gussets. 31 and 32, do you see some different things happening up here? So that's why I have you stop at round 30, because if you're used to doing this back and forth, and you just might do 31 and 32 the same way, and then you go, oops, and you have to rip out 2 rounds. So that's why I say to do that. So just read the next part, it tells you. And there is a mistake in here that I will correct. It's on the sole chart. It needs to have a decrease, a knit 2 together added right there in the 3rd stitch. Actually, it's an SSK in the 3rd stitch of the 1st row. I found a mistake in the chart, so I will be correcting that. Okay, let's see. Amanda, yes, that's a great idea. Amanda says the ITAG also needs an index. I'm going to do that. In fact, you know, because I do my, I don't know about Microsoft Word because I don't use that. I used to use it, but I don't anymore. And I use Pages, and you can, if you choose which title style you use for your table of contents, every time you use that title style through the document, it'll automatically add that title and the page to the tables of contents. So it's not hard to create a table of contents, and I will do that for the ITAG when I finalize it. And I'm going to add a different cover page to it also. This is Sin 1217. Jane Mucklestone has a book of Farrow motifs too. Yes, she does. Okay, let me see. Are there any more questions? How am I doing on my questions? Luana says she likes the way I print my patterns. The graphs are large. Yeah, I do that on purpose. The charts are big. Sometimes they take up the whole page because I can't see those little charts. So I make my charts big. Nancy Porter, off-topic question. Suzanne, do you have a video on double knitting? I have a whole bunch of videos on double knitting, Nancy. In fact, you could just, I actually have a video made up of how to navigate my YouTube channel, but I need to add the voiceover to it. And that's something I just have to do. I need to add it to my book, don't I? I think I'll add that to my book. When can I do that? Maybe Wednesday. Work on video with voiceover. I love my book. See, when I do this now, let's say Wednesday comes and I don't get a chance to do it. All I have to do is move it to another day, and it takes it off my mind. I don't have to try to remember it. Okay, comment, your video saved me today. I am out of town and needed a certain size DB needle, so use 2 cars. I don't understand that, but okay. Oh, she probably let's see, okay, go back here. Question, that's double knitting. 2 circulars, 2 cars, oh my goodness, that's hilarious. So Elaine says, comment, your video saved me today. I'm out of town and needed a certain size DB needle, so use 2 cars. And she meant she used 2 circulars. Oh, it's hilarious. Okay, Carol says, question, is Jamison Smith jumper weight yarn good for socks? No. So Jamison Smith jumper weight wool is a woolen spun yarn. Now, what we want for socks is a worsted spun yarn. And when I talked in lesson 1 about the type of yarn that you want to use, and I showed you, you want 3 or more plies, and you want a tight twist. Jamison and Smith and Jamison's, those are 2 different companies, Jamison's and Jamison and Smith. They both are based in the Shetland Islands. They spin only Shetland wool, and it is spun in the woolen method, which is specifically for stranded or feral jumpers or sweaters or cardigans. And it's extraordinarily warm. My green Into the Jungle jacket that I've shown you on here, my feral jacket, that's made out of Jamison's. It's light as air. It's like a cloud, very light, but very, very warm because it traps a lot of air, because it has that very loose spin, which traps the air. But the loose spin would not be good for socks. You'd wear it out. On the other hand, it's great for felting. So if you wanted to make some house slippers, you could use it to make the house slippers really giant and then felt them down to the size of your foot, and they would probably wear for a long time. That's something I want to do. It's on my to-do list. Okay. Betty White, are you still liking the bullet journal? I love it. I love it better, more every day. I sleep better at night. I rest better. I feel like a load's been taken off my shoulders. I did not expect those things. I was just thinking I'm making a giant to-do list. But once you write it down, it feels like you have control over your life. It just happens. I don't know if that happens to everybody, but it did to me. Okay, Freaky Geek, see you later. Go get your yard work done. You could do mine too. Diana Danko, question, have you ever tried the Twigg stitch? I looked at it when the book came out, and it wasn't something I was interested in, so I never looked at it anymore. And that's all I can say. And then Sue Fuji says, what is your favorite blocking method for socks? Do you use the foot forms? I do not. What I do is I soak my sock for about 20 minutes in room temperature water. I just put it in a cup of water. And then after 20 minutes, I squeeze out the excess water. I roll it in a towel, and then I lay it out like this on a smooth surface, non-porous surface. I just lay it out and I allow it to dry, and they come out perfect every time. I used to think you had to have a sock form, but you don't. It works fine without it. Okay. Let's see. And if I miss your question up higher, do state it again, okay? Because the list gets long over here and I start scrolling up and down and it gets crazy. Okay, B. Yasmin says, I meant to say the steepness of my toe decrease as I need to finish the sock. The increase of stitch count has put me in a bind, and I'm trying different methods to get it right. Okay, I without pictures and stuff, I don't know what I can say for that. I'm sorry. Maybe you could post some pictures in my Ravelry group or Facebook so I can see what you're talking about, and then I'd love to help you, okay? Nancy says, question, I know you've discussed why the yarn on the left is dominant. Where can I find that info, or could you go over it again? It is, there's more information going to be in lesson 3. Just Google or DuckDuckGo yarn dominance and in stranded knitting, and you can read about it, okay? Lorraine says, I use the journal to write my bills in, and when I pay them, then I can check one month against the other. Oh, I do that. I have a spreadsheet. You know what? I have a spreadsheet that I made in 1994, 1995. I took a business class on creating a spreadsheet, a lifetime spreadsheet for a company, you know, like where you have your impound accounts and depreciation and all that type of stuff. So you plan for the future and replacing your equipment and all that kind of stuff. And I made one of those for my life, and I still use that. I have it, everything on there. It's very cool. I love it. I'm really anal. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's see. Suzanne, I'm supposed to remind you to show us examples of yarn that creates slanted V's. Yes, I'm not at home, so I can't do that. And I have that in my bullet list for tomorrow. I'll show you on Ravelry, and on Wednesday, when we do the live stream on Wednesday, I'll have a bunch of yarns and I'll show you the knitting and I'll show you the plies and why they do that and how you can check for that yarn before you buy it. Okay? So let me go to the Ravelry questions now, okay? I've got them here on my iPad. So this is from Susan Marie. I'm sorry that the lighting keeps going up and down here. It has to do with where my head is in. If I keep my head in the center, I think it's okay. ITAG question. I just finished my combining row, connecting the bottom of the pockets to the lining extensions live stitches. I watched the YouTube video combining 2 layers of fabric across a row. In the video, you show crossing a 4-stitch cable without connecting the lining stitches and then crossing the 2 middle stitches. I did that to decrease at that cable because that cable was going to come to a point, I do believe. So I was not only crossing the cable, I was decreasing, doing a cable flare compensation in the decreasing at the end of the pocket and the pocket lining. So that's probably what was happening there. I'd have to go back and watch the video to make sure. Suzanne, this is from Sweet Jane 11. Put this over here, maybe it'll fix the light better. When wrapping a brioche stitch on the shawl collar V-neck stitches, after you initially slip the stitch from the left to the right needle, bring the yarn forward, replace the stitch to the left needle. Do you move the yarn back to the initial position or leave it there? It doesn't matter, because what you're going to do is you knit over to the position, knit, 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 till you're going to wrap the stitch. If your yarn is in the back, you slip the stitch first, and then you bring the yarn forward and around that stitch, right? And then you turn your work. And you have to put the yarn wherever it needs to go to make the next stitch. So at that point, you will move it to make the next stitch. If you're going to knit, the yarn has to be in the back. If you're going to purl, the yarn has to be in the front. If you're working across and your yarn's in the front, when you come to the wrap stitch, you slip that stitch and you wrap it this way. So in reality, this is the stitch that's going to be wrapped. You work over to it, and if the yarn's in the back, you slip the stitch and you come around it. So you're making a hook. If you follow the directions that say work over to the stitch, the yarn's in the back, move the yarn forward, slip the stitch, move the yarn back. What you're doing is you're twisting right here. Here, I can't show that, I can't twist, but you're making an X twist right here before you wrap the stitch. So I like it better if the yarn just goes around. I think it makes a tighter wrap around there. You have less excess by crossing the yarn on this side, because let's say the yarn's in the back, you bring it to the front, slip the stitch, move the yarn, move it back, then take the yarn back. You've made a little cross of the working yarn right here before this stitch. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's that question. So that's what I do. If the yarn's in the back, I slip the stitch, move the yarn forward. If the yarn's forward, I slip the stitch and move it back. Then I turn the work, and then I put the yarn to wherever it needs to be to create the next stitch. It's very, very simple. This is from Sweet Jane 11 also. It says, Suzanne, does one color brioche wrap and turns always start with the yarn in the back? Not necessarily, based upon where the yarn is before you get there and which yarn you're using. So when one color brioche, you could be working, in one color brioche, you're always working knits, because you knit a stitch, slip a stitch, knit a stitch, slip a stitch, and then you get to the end and you turn and you do the second pass. You're going to be knitting a stitch, slip a stitch, knit a stitch, slip a stitch, because on the other side it's purls, right? So you want it knit, purl, knit, purl. So if you're doing one color brioche, your yarn should always be in the back when you're going to wrap the stitch, as if you're going to knit, not as if you're going to slip. Okay? Does that answer that? That's exactly right. Also, how do you know if one color brioche when to work the wrap stitch with a knit stitch or a purl stitch? I usually wrap it when the knit stitch is facing me. So that if it's on a wrong side row, it's going to be a purl on the right side, but on the wrong side, it's a knit facing me. So I wrap the knits when they're facing me, because when I come back to pick up those wraps, I'll be in the same position. It's easier to pick them up and conceal them on a knit stitch. Okay, that's all the Ravelry questions. So let's go back over here. Okay, this is Sue M. Question. Holding yarn in opposite hands for color work. My left hand does not keep the same tension. Left hand looser. Any suggestions to fix that? I am normally a thrower. Trying continental. You just need to work more on your continental and tightening up your tension. I use my little finger. So if I'm putting my yarn around my hand, continental, I go around my little finger and like this. You can do whatever you want, but see how it's going around my little finger right here? And that's my break. I use that as my braking system. So when I want to allow yarn through, I open up my little finger. It allows the yarn to slip. When I close my finger, it puts the brake on. I can't pull the yarn through. When I open this, the yarn slips. When I pull it, that's the brake. So I use that. I actually hold the yarn in both my hands that way. So I use my little finger as my braking system. So the brake's on, I can't pull the yarn. Brake's open, the yarn comes through. Brake's on, it stops. That's how I tension my yarn. But you can do it however you want. Everybody does theirs different. This is Xerix. I gotta say that right. Question, when preparing knitted socks or sweaters, is there a problem or reason not to use my Nina soft spin? Nope, that's perfectly fine. You can even use a lettuce spinner. Spin out that extra water. Some people will put their sweaters in the spinning cycle of their washing machine. I haven't tried that, but I hear people say that works just fine. Deborah Cisneros, question, how do you determine how much larger to knit a project when felting? Trial and error. You knit a swatch, knit two swatches exactly the same. Felt one, compare it to the other. Now, when you felt it, you need to mark a couple of corners. Like I would mark the top right corner with a single marker, the bottom right corner with maybe two markers, and then in the center of the right side, put a marker so that you can reorient the felted one. Because once it's felted, it's very difficult to tell what's the top, bottom, or sides. It can felt in more this way than this way, or it can felt more in this way than this way. Also, I have learned that when you want to felt something, you actually want to have a looser stitch gauge than you normally would knitting with that yarn. If you knit it at the normal tension that you would, it won't felt as much as it can. If you make the stitches bigger, there's more room for them to agitate against each other when it's felting, and they will actually shrink down a lot more. So it's trial and error. Okay. Nancy Porter, question. ITA, I think she needs the ITAG sweater. If you're planning on 2x2 ribbing for the shawl collar, do you recommend 1x1 ribbing to build up the back of the shawl collar area? I recommend 2x1 ribbing to build up the back. And then when you get to about the 2-inch mark, when you have 2x1 in that one, do a knit front and back, and then you'll end up with knit 2, purl 2. And it looks pretty good. And if you plan it correctly, on the right side, you'll see knit 2, purl 2 all the way. It'll look very nice, okay? Hello, Delise, nice to see you. Xerix, question, when preparing socks, oh, I already answered that, I'm sorry. Amaris Joseph says, questions, I'm working on writing my first knitting book and was wondering if I need to make a style sheet before I start typing up my book. That sounds like a really good thing to do. I've never written a book other than my patterns, which are about the size of books, but I do create a style sheet that I go along. Remember when I was talking about that in my pages, it'll pick up a certain style of the titles to create the table of contents. Yeah, you can do that. And then let's see. Miriam, question, will you post the sock chart errata on the Ravelry page? Yes, I will do that. Let me write that down. I can do that today. Okay. Now, is there anything else anybody else wants to mention or questions they want to ask? I think we're kind of finishing up. Did everybody get a notification? Now, I didn't send it out until about 30 minutes before I was ready to go live because I'm over at the beach and I have a different routine over here and I totally forgot. So I'm hoping you got some sort of a notification for this. Betty Wright says, you ought to think about writing a knitting book. Your patterns are heirloom worthy and having them with big, beautiful photos would be lovely. Yes, if I could divide my body in half so I could do twice as much, that would be wonderful. Maybe someday. I'm accumulating enough material that I could probably write a book. I'm going to work on my beginning knitting materials for this summer to make a book, though. It's going to be an iBook with interactive. Eloise says, can I jump in and buy the pattern today? Yes, this is something you can start anytime you want. You're not too late. You're never too late. You can jump in. It'll stay there. When we're completely done doing this part, all of these materials will still be available for you. Okay. Sue Fuji, do you have a favorite heel for basic socks? I do. I like the heel flap and heel turn with gussets because I have high arches. If you have low arches, the short row heel actually fits people better with low arches. It depends on the type of arch you have. Okay, Lorraine, she says she did not get a notice till after the fact. What you can do is, if you're not getting notices, because a lot of people did, it looks like, if you're not getting notices, go to my YouTube channel and where the little subscribe button is, make sure you've subscribed, and then there's a bell. Be sure the bell is turned on, that it shows that it's vibrating. If it's off, that means you've chosen to receive no notifications. And so you won't receive notifications even if I send them out. But if you go and you hit the red subscribe button, make sure you're a subscriber, and then make sure your bell looks like it's ringing. If it's not ringing, just click on it and it'll turn to the ringing. That means you'll receive notifications. Anything else? So, you know, this Starry Starry Night sock's going to be done real soon. It goes really fast. Once you get down to the heel gusset and the heel turn, you're on the home stretch and it goes really fast. In the heel gusset and the heel turn, what you're going to learn that's different, you're going to learn how to make increases in stranded knitting in the gusset, and then in the heel turn, you're going to learn how to make decreases in stranded knitting. And there's more increases. There's decreases here, increases here, and decreases here. All this is decreases, okay? Miriam, is it possible to slant the toes on socks for special fitting? The pointed, yes, you can start rounding them sooner. You start, for example, this one is much more rounded than my other ones. See how it's rounded? So I had started out with 80 stitches, right? So right here is where I started the toe shaping back here. The toe shaping, I started right here. You can see my decreases. And I decreased until I had about 40 stitches remaining. Half the stitches were decreased. And so I decreased every other row like you would for a standard sock toe decrease. Then after that, I decreased every round. So a much faster decrease. So it gives you this round toe here instead of the pointy toe. I didn't bring my Starry. I thought I had brought them up here, but I don't see them. They're in my bedroom. The Starry Starry Night socks are much pointier. So it's up to you. And when we get to the toe part of the lesson, Yes, that's lesson 4. I'm going to tell you exactly how to make the rounded toe and how to start it wherever you want it to be. I think this looks so cool. I love the sole of these socks. Okay, so how's that? Are you guys good? I'm good. Start thinking about the yarn you want to use for your sweater for the ITAG yoke. It can be any weight of yarn between fingering up to bulky. And start thinking if you want, you can just knit a plain sweater with no design whatsoever. It's okay. It can go from that simple all the way up to as complicated as you want to make it for the yoke. Valerie Dunham, question, I'm on row 28. Yes, just wait. It's going to come out Tuesday, actually tomorrow night. Before I go to bed, about 10 o'clock Pacific time. Oh, I found my socks. They were right over here on the other side of my computer. Okay. Do you see how this is pointy? This is a pointy toe. This is the round toe. See the difference? Okay, so they both start right in here. I have them at the same elevation. This part here, this part here. So you can see how much longer the Starry Starry Night toe is. I put my finger here, my finger here. Do you see that? It's quite a bit difference. And this is rounded and this is very pointy. So in the in lesson 4, I just sent out lesson 3. Lesson 4, lesson 5 is the toe. And I might combine lesson 4 and 5 together because you guys are going really quickly. Anything else? Okay. So think about your yarn for the knit along, the next knit along, and just start looking in your books for stitch patterns. Look on Ravelry. Look at the projects on Ravelry and see what you like and what turns you on, and that'll give you some ideas of maybe what you'd like to do. One of my friends actually is going to knit the Zweig sweater, S-Z-W-E-I-G, and she's going to knit it as part of the knit along. And you can do that too if you want. If you want to pick a standard sweater that's a yoke sweater top down that's already out there, you can use that if you want and follow along. You'll still need to buy my ITAG pattern, and it will be $25 on February 15th. It will be half price for one day on February 15th. The knit along is going to start on March 1st. So Dolise, you're worried about that. We can talk about that when we get off of here. So anyway, keep watching, keep knitting, and I'll see you next time, and have a glorious afternoon. Happy knitting.